The PGA Tour is facing something it has never dealt with before. 11 players, all of them former members who left for LIV Golf, have now filed an injunction to freeze Brian Rolapp's promotion to commissioner. Rolap is set to take over on January 1st, 2027, but these 11 players want to stop it from happening. They want the courts to block the promotion before it even begins. 11 players who walked away from the tour are now trying to control who runs it. That is not just bold, that is unprecedented. These are not random players. These are the same 11 who sued the PGA Tour back in 2022 after they were suspended for joining LIV. Some of them dropped out of that lawsuit, others stayed in, and now, years later, they are back with a new legal move that could throw the entire tour into chaos. The timing could not be more critical. Rolap's promotion is already approved. The tour is restructuring. A new two-series system with promotion and relegation is coming in 2028. Everything is moving forward. And now, these 11 players are trying to slam the brakes on all of it. Why now? What changed? And more importantly, can they actually pull this off? The answer is not as simple as you might think. Because these players are not just fighting Rolap, they are fighting for their own survival. And the outcome of this legal battle will shape the future of professional golf for years to come. But here is the thing. These 11 players have already tried something like this before. 3 of them filed an injunction in 2022 to get back into the FedEx Cup playoffs. A federal judge denied it. So why would this time be any different? That is exactly what we are going to break down. Before we get into all of that, I want to hear from you. My take is simple. If you leave the tour, you should not get to decide who runs it. But maybe you see it differently. Do you think these 11 players deserve a say in Rolap's promotion? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to stay updated on this developing story, make sure you subscribe. Because this is only going to get more intense from here. Who are these 11 players? And what gives them the right to challenge the PGA Tour's leadership? So let us start with the most obvious question. Who are these 11 players? And why does their legal move carry so much weight? The answer goes back to August 2022, when professional golf was already tearing itself apart over LIV Golf. That month, 11 players filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour. They claimed the tour was illegally stopping them from competing after they joined LIV. The list included some of the biggest names in the sport: Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, Ian Poulter, Taylor Gooch, Hudson Swafford, Matt Jones, Abraham Ancer, Carlos Ortiz, Pat Perez, Jason Kokrak, and Peter Uihlein. These were not unknown players. These were stars who had walked away from the tour for Saudi money. But here is where it gets interesting. Over time, some of them dropped out of the lawsuit. Mickelson pulled out, Poulter pulled out, Ancer, Ortiz, Perez, and Kokrak all left too. By the time the dust settled, only 3 of the original 11 were still actively fighting: Bryson DeChambeau, Taylor Gooch, and Peter Uihlein. The rest had either settled or simply walked away from the legal battle. However, the term rank-and-file members in the title refers to all 11 players collectively, not just the 3 who stayed in the lawsuit, because all of them are still LIV players. All of them are still banned from the tour, and all of them still want back in. Now, the question that every golf fan is asking is this: why would these 11 players, especially the ones who dropped out of the lawsuit, suddenly file a new injunction to freeze Rolap's promotion? What changed between 2022 and now that makes this legal move necessary? The answer has nothing to do with Brian Rolap personally, and everything to do with what is happening behind the scenes in professional golf. Because these players are not just fighting the tour, they are fighting for their careers. The Wall Street Journal reported that the damage some players inflicted on their way out the door will not be forgotten, and when you look at who these 11 players are, it is clear they are the ones who burned the most bridges. They are not the LIV players who quietly left. They are the ones who sued the tour. They are the ones who publicly attacked the organization. So now, they are trying to come back. But the tour has not forgotten what they did. And that brings us to the real reason behind this injunction. What exactly are these 11 players trying to stop? And why does blocking Brian Rolap matter so much to them? To understand what they are trying to stop, you first need to understand what Brian Rolap is actually doing. Rolap is not just any executive. He was brought in from the NFL in 2025 to take over as CEO of the PGA Tour, and on June 23, 2026, the Tour boards officially approved his promotion to commissioner. He is set to take office on January 1, 2027. This makes him the 5th commissioner in Tour history. That is a big deal. The commissioner is the single most powerful person in professional golf. They control the schedule, the rules, the sponsorships, and the direction of the entire organization. So when Rolap takes over, he will have the authority to reshape the tour however he sees fit. And he has already started making changes. One of the biggest is the introduction of a new 2-series model that will begin in 2028. This is a promotion and relegation system, similar to what you see in European soccer leagues. The top players will compete in something called the Championship Series. The players below them will compete in the Challenger Series. Every season, 20 players from the Challenger Series will be promoted to the Championship Series, and 20 players from the Championship Series will be relegated down. Think about what that actually means for a guy sitting at number 80 on the priority list. Last year, that player could coast through the back half of the season, pick up a few checks, and still keep his card for the following year. Under this new format, that safety net is gone. Every single tournament becomes a job interview. Miss 3 cuts in a row, and suddenly you are staring down the barrel of relegation. The guys who used to grind on the Korn Ferry Tour for a shot at the big leagues now have a second pathway up, but the guys at the bottom of the Championship Series have a very real pathway down. It changes how every player approaches a Thursday morning tee time. For the average player, this is terrifying, because it means your spot on the tour is no longer guaranteed. You cannot just coast on past success. You have to perform every single season, or you lose your status. And for the top players, it means the competition just got even tougher. Now, imagine you are one of the 11 players who left for LIV. You are banned from the tour. You cannot compete in any PGA Tour events. And now, the tour is restructuring into a system where even the players who stayed are fighting for their spots. What chance do you have of getting back in? The answer is almost none. And that is exactly why these 11 players are panicking. Because if Rolap implements this 2-series system, the door for their return could close permanently. The new system does not have room for players who walked away. It has room for players who committed to the tour and proved themselves. So the injunction is not really about Rolap, it is about the system he represents. It is about the future of professional golf. And it is about whether these 11 players will ever have a place in it. But here is the question that makes this whole situation even more fascinating. Why now? Why did they wait until 2026 to file this injunction? Why did they not do it back in 2022 when Rolap was first being considered? The answer to that question is the key to understanding everything. And it has everything to do with what is happening to LIV Golf right now. The Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, the people who bankroll LIV Golf, is cutting off funding after 2026. That is not speculation, that is confirmed. The money that was flowing into LIV is drying up. And the players who left for the Saudi tour are suddenly realizing they might not have a place to play. This is the part of the story that most golf fans already suspect, but do not fully understand. LIV Golf was built on unlimited Saudi money. The contracts were huge. The sign-on bonuses were astronomical. Players like Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau signed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But those deals were not infinite. They were structured over multiple years. And as those contracts come to an end, the players are facing a harsh reality. And here is the part people overlook. LIV was never just about the money for these guys. It was about schedule freedom. No cuts, fewer events, more time at home. But once the money stops flowing and the schedule shrinks even further, what is left? A handful of exhibition-style events with no world ranking points, no major qualification pathway, and no real competitive structure. For a player in his early 30s who still has golf left in him, that is not a career. That is a slow fade into irrelevance. And these 11 guys can feel that clock ticking louder every single month. There is no second LIV. There is no other tour that will pay them that kind of money. And the PGA Tour, which they walked away from, is now stronger than ever. So what do you do if you are one of these 11 players? You are banned from the tour. You are running out of money. And the person who is about to become commissioner is building a system that has no room for you. You panic. And then you sue. Because an injunction is their last option. It is their final attempt to stop Rolap from taking over. If they can freeze his promotion, they can delay the 2-series system. They can buy themselves more time. And maybe, just maybe, they can negotiate a better deal for their return. But there is another layer to this. Some of the LIV players, including Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, were already offered a pathway back through something called the Returning Member Program. That is the same program Brooks Koepka used to come back. But Rahm and DeChambeau chose not to take it. They elected to stay with LIV and see how things played out. Now, that decision is coming back to haunt them, because the Returning Member Program is not expected to be renewed, and Patrick Reed's 1-year ban pathway may not be available either. So the players who thought they could wait it out are discovering that the window for their return is closing fast. And the 11 antitrust plaintiffs are in the worst position of all. They did not just leave quietly, they sued the tour, they publicly attacked it, they burned every bridge they had, and now they are trying to come back. But the tour has not forgotten, and the people who run it are not interested in making things easy for them. So what happens next? Can these 11 players actually stop Rolap, or are they fighting a battle they have already lost? To answer that question, you need to understand what an injunction actually is, and you need to understand how courts have already ruled on this exact issue. An injunction is a court order that requires someone to do something or stop doing something. In this case, the 11 players are asking a federal judge to stop Rolap from becoming commissioner. They want the court to freeze his promotion until their antitrust lawsuit is resolved. But getting an injunction is not easy. The players have to prove 3 things. First, they have to show that they will suffer irreparable harm if Rolap becomes commissioner. That means they need to convince the judge that Rolap's promotion will damage them in a way that money cannot fix. Second, they have to show that they are likely to win their underlying antitrust case. And third, they have to show that the public interest favors granting the injunction. All 3 of those are incredibly difficult to prove. And there is a practical problem here that most people miss. Even if a judge were willing to entertain the argument, the 11 players would need to demonstrate a direct causal link between Rolap specifically and the harm they claim. They would need to show that Rolap, as an individual, is the reason they cannot return, rather than the tour's existing bylaws and membership policies. That is a very high bar, because the tour's rules regarding suspended members existed long before Rolap ever set foot in a golf office. The policies were written under the previous leadership. Rolap did not create them, he inherited them, and a court is going to look at that distinction very carefully. But here is the most important detail. This is not the first time these players have tried something like this. In 2022, 3 of them, Taylor Gooch, Hudson Swafford, and Matt Jones, filed a temporary injunction to get back into the FedEx Cup playoffs. They argued that their ban from the tour was causing them irreparable harm. They said they were losing millions of dollars. They said their careers were being destroyed. A federal judge listened to their arguments, and then he denied the injunction. He ruled that the players had chosen to join LIV knowing the consequences. He ruled that they could not claim harm when they had voluntarily walked away. And he ruled that the PGA Tour had the right to enforce its own rules. That ruling set a precedent. Courts have already looked at these players' arguments and rejected them. So what makes this time any different? The answer is nothing. The legal arguments are almost identical. The only difference is that now they are targeting Rolap instead of the tour itself, but the core logic is the same. The players walked away. They knew the risks, and now they are trying to use the courts to get what they want. Legal experts who have looked at this case say the injunction has almost no chance of succeeding. The precedent is against them. The facts are against them. And the courts have already ruled that the tour has the right to control its own membership. So why are they even trying? Because they have no other options. And because sometimes, when you are desperate, you take a swing even when the odds are stacked against you. But even if they lose in court, which they almost certainly will, this fight is not really about the law. It is about something much bigger. This fight is about the future of professional golf. It is about whether the players who left for LIV will ever be allowed back. And it is about who gets to control the direction of the sport. The PGA Tour is at a crossroads. On one side, you have the players who stayed loyal. They committed to the tour. They followed the rules. And they watched as some of the biggest names in golf walked away for Saudi money. On the other side, you have the players who left. They took the money. They abandoned the tour. And now they want back in. That creates a fundamental tension that cannot be resolved easily. The players who stayed feel betrayed. They feel like the LIV defectors got rewarded for breaking the rules. And they are not interested in making it easy for them to come back. The Wall Street Journal reported that some players expected to face additional scrutiny when they try to return. That is a diplomatic way of saying that the tour is going to make it as difficult as possible for them. They are not going to just welcome them back with open arms. They are going to make them earn it. And the 11 antitrust plaintiffs are at the very bottom of that list. They are the ones who sued. They are the ones who went public with their attacks. And they are the ones who burned the most bridges. Rolap, when he takes over, will have the power to decide how that return process works. He can make it generous, he can make it harsh, or he can make it impossible. And based on everything we know about how the tour operates, it is going to be harsh. Because the message is clear. If you leave the tour, you do not get to come back on your own terms. You come back on the tour's terms. Or you do not come back at all. That is the reality that these 11 players are facing. They are desperate to return. But the tour is not interested in helping them. And the courts are not interested in forcing the tour to help them. So what happens next? When the injunction inevitably fails, and the Rolap becomes commissioner on the January 1st, these 11 players will have a choice to make. And that choice will define the rest of their careers. The injunction will fail. That is not speculation. That is the logical conclusion based on legal precedent and the facts of the case. Courts have already ruled against these players. The arguments they are making are the same arguments they made before, and the outcome is almost certain to be the same. So where does that leave these 11 players? It leaves them with two options. Option 1 is to accept reality and come back on whatever terms the tour offers them. That means swallowing their pride. It means accepting whatever penalties the tour imposes. And it means playing under the new 2-series system with no guarantees of their status. Option 2 is to stay with LIV and hope that something changes. But LIV is dying. The funding is drying up. The players are leaving. And the tour is moving on without them. Neither option is good. But one of them is less bad. Because if these players want to keep playing professional golf at the highest level, they need the PGA Tour. There is no other option. The European Tour, the Asian Tour, the Australasian Tour, none of them offer the same money, the same exposure, or the same competition. The PGA Tour is the pinnacle, and if you are not on it, you are irrelevant. So they will come back, not because they want to, but because they have to. The question is whether the tour will let them, and the answer to that question is yes, but on the tour's terms. Rolap has been described as someone who holds all the cards. That is not an exaggeration. He controls the schedule. He controls the rules. He controls the sponsorships. And he controls who gets to play. The 11 players have no leverage. They have no power. And they have no alternative. So when January 1st arrives and Rolap takes over as commissioner, he will have a decision to make. He can show mercy. He can offer them a path back. Or he can make an example of them. He can show the rest of the golf world that leaving the tour has consequences, and that if you walk away, you might never get another chance. My take on this is simple. These players made their choice. They took the money, they walked away, and now they have to live with the consequences. But maybe you see it differently. Maybe you think these players deserve a second chance. Maybe you think the tour should welcome them back and move on. That is the beauty of the golf. Everyone has its own opinion, and I want to hear yours opinion. Do you think the 11 LIV players deserve a second chance on the PGA Tour? Should Brian Rolap show them mercy or make an example of them? Let me know your take in the comments, because this story is not over. The injunction is just the beginning. The real battle will start when Rolap takes over and these players try to find their way back. And when that happens, we will be right here covering it. If you want to stay on top of this story as it unfolds, hit subscribe, because this is not the last we will hear from these 11 players. and the future of professional golf is about to get a whole lot more interesting.